Hi there, and welcome to day 7 for Freedom from Anxiety in Uncertain Times. And I'm Jan Hart from HR with Heart, and you're all very welcome. Today I'm going to move on and explore the nature of our inner guidance, or the nature of our inner GPS, just a little bit, because I've been talking about that and it's been popping up during the week, so I thought it best maybe to give it a little attention. And I'm going to start today with a quote from Einstein, and maybe you've heard it before. And it goes like this: "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten about the gift." So I think that really sets the scene for today's live. So the sacred gift that Einstein is pointing to here is our innate wisdom, our innate intelligence, universal intelligence, our intuitive mind, essentially. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about and exploring today. And to bring this to life, I'm going to ask you to think about babies. Now, we've all been babies, and most of us have been experienced to little babies at different times in our life. So when babies are born, they really don't have a rational mind, because their ticker tape is blank, and even though we are all born into a world of thought, there's nothing written on the ticker tape yet. So babies are very in tune and with their inner guidance and their inner GPS and their intuitive mind, and they also allow themselves to be guided by it and are very open to it and all the possibilities that it brings. So to bring it to life, think about when babies are born. Now, I know we had Vicky on here the other day, and she said she had a baby that was born crying and never stopped crying, and there was a reason for that. But most babies, when they're born, they're quite peaceful. Unless they're hungry, they need changing, they're in pain, they're uncomfortable, and then they let us know. And the way that they let us know is by crying out. And the reason they cry out is because their inner intuitive mind is guiding them to do that. So they do. They don't have any thinking about it, they just get on with it. And so play it forward a little bit, and the months are rolling on, and baby learns to move and waggle its fingers and wiggle its toes and its legs and smile. It learns to roll over and crawl, and eventually it learns how to walk. And again, this is all a very intuitive process, and they're living and being guided by their intuitive mind. It's not a cognitive process. We can give all the encouragement that we want to our babies, to walk. And, when they fall down, we don't say, "Oh God, he's not going to be a walker, or she's never going to walk. Look at them, they just keep falling down." Because we trust in the process, and we know that at some point they'll figure it out and they'll get up and they'll walk. But it's not an intelligent process. It's not a cognitive process. They're not following a step-by-step process. They're being led by their intuitive mind. And in recent years we see there's been a trend for parents to take very young babies to swimming lessons, and you see these tiny babies being just thrown into pools, and the parents for a lot of the time are standing on the sidelines holding their breath and hoping they've done the right thing, and what have they done to their poor baby. But on some level they know that the baby will be alright, and the baby is alright, because the baby is tuned into its intuition and its intuitive mind. So the baby drops in the water, goes under the water, intuitively rolls onto its back, surfaces, takes a breath and floats. And that's purely intuition. Again, I'm just trying to point to the fact that not everything is a cognitive process, that we do have this intuitive mind. So, again, when smallies are, in bad form, or things aren't going their way and they decide that they're going to throw a tantrum, they're not caught up into thinking about the tantrum. They're unhappy, things aren't going well, and, they're guided to go throw a tantrum, and they do, and they don't really care what you're thinking about it. They have no layered personal thinking on the fact that they're having a tantrum. And when it's over, it's over. And I've often seen that, the fastest way to help a child through a tantrum is just to sit and be present with them. When we start telling them to sit down or stand up and stop shouting and stop kicking, and, we only wind them up even more the same way that we wind ourselves up. So, anyway, potty training is another really good example. We'd be so proud of ourselves as parents when our child uses the potty. And, a bit like this conversation, as parents, we point the child towards the potty, and we keep pointing them in the direction of the potty. But when they actually start using the potty, that happens through an insight. And at some point, there's a recognition within the child that the feeling that's in their bladder, now they don't know it's their bladder, but that feeling that they have inside is a message to let go. And that when they go to the potty, that they let go there. And, that's a really interesting one, because all of our feelings have messages for us. And as we talked about during the week, we just have to learn to decode them a little differently, because sometimes we think that they mean something that they don't mean. And the last example that I'm going to give you today is when a child learns to ride a bike. And again, we're pointing them, we're holding onto the bike, we're teaching them the mechanics, you hold onto the steering wheel and you sit on the saddle and you pedal away. But at that moment when the child cycles the bicycle on their own, that's not just a cognitive process. Something happens inside. These are all inside-out jobs. And at some point along the way, the child's balance kicks in, and intuitively they know what to do and they go on with it. And this is the beauty of the intuitive mind, because once we know, we know. The whole saying, once you know how to ride a bike, you never forget. When we learn how to walk, we don't forget. I still know when I get a feeling in my tummy that it's time to go and use the toilet. It's that simple. But we've just, I suppose, as the quote says, we've learned to lean really, really heavily on the rational mind more than the intuitive mind. So this was a really, really big one for me, because I was somebody who had forgotten all about my intuitive mind and really thought all I had going for me was my rational mind. And, I wasn't primarily using it as a means to navigating life. I was using it as the only means to navigate through life, because I thought it was the only resource that I had available to me. And it's not. There's more available to us than we've ever imagined. And I suppose that's what's on offer here in this conversation, is an opportunity to open up to that wisdom. So, hi Rose, hi Kay. Finally starting to see comments coming through. I'm getting with this program. So I was speaking with somebody this morning, and it just reminded me that, particularly in the workspace before, I used to plan everything out. I think I talked about that yesterday. But more important than that, when I'd come out of a meeting or come out of a difficult conversation or be in some sort of a situation or a circumstance, and it didn't have to be work, it would be anywhere, later on, at some point after it had all happened and passed over, I'd start getting thoughts about, oh, I could have said this, and oh, I could have said that, and oh, that would have been a good answer. And then you start wondering, why does this not come to me in the moment? Why is it coming to me after the fact? Wouldn't it be much more useful to me in that situation rather than afterwards? Hi Breda, welcome. And there's a reason that happens. Because when we have busy minds and we overthink things and overanalyze and, we whip up our thinking and we feel anxious and stressed, it's like having a snow globe, and the snow globe is all shook up, and the snow is all shook up inside in the snow globe, and you can't see clearly through the snow globe because there's too much snow. But when you put the snow globe down and the snow settles, then you can see clearly through the snow globe, so you can see what's going on, and it's a bit like that. Another example would be, during the week I was driving home one day and there was just a really heavy downpour while I happened to be on the road. And I suppose if I try to keep driving in that, then I have no clarity and I can't see where I'm going, and it's a much more difficult ride. Whereas if I just pull over to the side of the road and wait for the shower to pass, then a couple of minutes later I'm back on the road, I can see clearly, and it's a much more pleasant, easy journey for me. So it's a bit like that. So it's just recognizing that some of the time we're caught up in these snow globe storms or thought storms, and we're all whipped up. And when the thoughts come later, they often come in the car driving home, when we're in the shower, we're out walking in nature, having a glass of wine with a friend, just enjoying a cup of coffee, it doesn't really matter. But it's usually in a quieter moment when our thinking has settled and, we've moved on and the ticker tape has moved on, and then something fresh and new comes through. Now that can come through even when we're caught up in our thinking. It's not that it can't. Our inner intuitive wisdom is always there. But what happens is that when we're caught up in our thinking, we're paying more attention to what's going on in our rational mind, and we're not paying attention to what's going on to our intuitive mind. And when we stop and listen in the moment and are present with what's going on, it's much easier for our intuitive mind to kick in and for our wisdom to kick in with it. So let's talk about the rational mind for a minute. Now, the rational mind is a useful tool, and it's something we all have and we all need, but it has two modes, and the two modes are active and receptive. And I suppose when the rational mind is in receptive mode, that's when the snow globe has settled. That's when our thinking has settled. And then we gain more access to our intuition, or what I sometimes call our inner genius, because sometimes I don't know where the heck these thoughts come from when my mind does settle down. Our inner intelligence kicks in, and that comes from somewhere beyond our brain, somewhere beyond the information that we've already gathered. And this inner genius or intuitive wisdom or intelligence or whatever we want to call it can guide us through any situation. It doesn't matter how difficult or how challenging the situation is. When we're tapped into this inner intelligence, it will guide you always. In the moment though, in real time, like we were talking about yesterday. It doesn't come up today for next week, it comes up in the moment. Because as I'm going to keep saying, life happens now, in this moment, and this moment, and this moment. But when the rational mind is active then, so when it's in receptive mode, we're quiet, we're settled down, and our wisdom is flowing through us. When we're in active mode, then that's a different situation. Then we're tapped into our computer brain, and our computer brain is like a filing system, information in, information out, and if it's not in there, you can't take it out. So when we're trying to problem solve or find a solution to something, and the rational mind is in active mode, then what we're doing is we're actually sifting through all the files in our filing cabinet, and we're looking for a specific answer or a specific solution to our problem. But the problem, not the problem, I suppose what I'd like to point out is if you haven't already put the answer or the specific solution into that filing cabinet, it's not going to be in there and you can't find it. Whereas when we're in receptive mode, we're open to all possibilities, we're open to the infinite intelligence of our inner genius, and the answers, like fresh new thoughts, fresh new thinking, fresh new insights, new possibilities, start to flow in. So that's the difference between the two modes, and we need them both, and they're both useful. But the benefit of using your inner intelligence, and that comes from that deeper place, is immediate, and it's universal. And what I mean by universal is it's the same for all human beings. And the more that we start to acknowledge and pay attention to that inner intelligence, it's like anything else where our focus goes, attention flows, energy goes, and we start to see more and more. And as the mind settles down and we stop using our rational mind as our primary mode of navigating life, you're going to start feeling more peaceful. You're going to start having insights more and more often, simple insights and profound ones. You start to take things less personally because you understand the nature of how we're designed. and you start connecting more deeply with others. And we start seeing things differently in others. You know, again, I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today, and they were talking about another individual. And they were telling me all the things that they saw was going on with this individual. And, you know, it's interesting, as I was sitting in a quiet mind and just, you know, being open to whatever came up in that moment, what I saw was that the person that they were talking about was just as caught up in insecure thinking and frightened as the person that I was talking to. So it brings us back to every human being is doing the best they can in any moment, given what thinking is on their ticker tape at that moment in time. Because we all live in the experience of our thinking in the moment. Our feelings are the special effects that bring our thinking to life, and they show us what's going on. And next week we'll be talking a little bit more about how to read the signals and how to decode the feelings. So what I really want to mention is that what I'm talking about here are not goals that you have to set out and achieve. What I'm talking about is the natural result of letting your mind settle down. Because we all have had quiet moments. And I know when I look back over my life and I'm looking and paying attention from my inner guidance, I can see it all over the place. And I can see how it came up and saved me in many a moment. But I didn't necessarily recognize it because I didn't know what it was. Now when you know this and you start to understand it, your intellect will always be there, and so will your inner wisdom. But the difference is that your intellect, and I suppose your ego in one way, stops trying to run the show all on its own. Because it sees and it recognizes and starts to trust that there's a deeper intelligence that it can partner up with and collaborate with, and that together they can guide us through life in an easier and more graceful way. So there's two kinds of thoughts. There's the thoughts that come from our brain, the information that we've put in there, the information that's on our ticker tape, and the information that we sift through looking for answers. And then there's the thoughts that just seem to download into our brain. The ones that were never there before, we have no idea where they came from, but they just seem like common sense, like genius thoughts, like insights. And that's coming from that deeper place, that deeper intelligence. I mentioned earlier in the week that I've been a behavioural coach for many years, and you know, there used to be a thinking some time ago that what made the difference between people that were successful and confident and lived a life of ease was the intelligence, the intellect. But what I've seen is that it's the people who have found the secret to operating in harmony with the universal mind, the universal intelligence, our inner genius, that learn to lean into it, tap into it, trust it, look for it, pay attention to it. They're the people that seem to have an easier time. That's just what I've seen. But the secret that so few people teach, because so few people know, is the secret that we're talking about here. And the universal genius, that spark of wisdom, it's alive and well in all of us. I know that for sure. And I'm here to remind you. So all it's waiting for, all that spark of genius that's inside you is waiting for, is your attention. And when you regularly and consistently look in that direction and give it your attention, it just bursts into life. And there's no going back. So, for today, I'm going to invite you to give some attention and look for the universal intelligence that's within you. Your own inner genius, your own inner GPS, your own inner guide. Because it is there and it's just waiting for your attention. So I think I'll end it there for today. I'm not seeing any comments come through. Got a few hellos. Malty's here. Hi Malty. And yeah, I think I've said hello to everybody else. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Have a happy Saturday. And as I say, start paying attention to that inner genius and wake her up. So till tomorrow, have a great day. Love to all. Speak to you soon.